Hi, and welcome back to Roulette's Play Home, a unique horror experience. We're gonna go super fast through this one. We're not gonna touch jack shit. Oh, hey kitty, what's up? I've always freed the mousey. I'm gonna go ahead and leave the mousey this time. I do have to do this because it's the only way I'm gonna be able to get out of here. Because this switch actually opens up the back door. It's the only way. The mouse was dead. It looked like the cat had got... Oh no! I didn't know it was gonna die like that. There was a ladder going underground where the box was. A dank smell rose. Did I climb down? Yes. Wow, this is so weird. Look at all these papers. Oh look, it's a gun. Had I looked at everything there before moving on? Yes. I looked at everything. I am very observant. What up, bats? Can't get me this time. Nope, screw you. Not happening. I remembered noticing the broken ladder. I don't remember if I jumped down there or found another way. It looked to be a long way. Did I jump? Sure, why not? I could hear a faint trickling. Sounds exactly like water. Oh, that's so weird. There's a knife down there. Nope. All of my nopes. Can't get me. I knew that was gonna happen. I knew that one was gonna happen. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Don't mind me, I'm just walking through your sewer treatment plant. I could smell a hint of fresh air here. I was anxious to leave but worried I had missed something. Nope, I wasn't even remotely worried about that. Suddenly the awful smell of that sewer gave way to the dank scent of pine trees. Alright, we are not going to touch anything. That means not going up there and getting my wallet. Means not going in here and visiting the train station. Fuck you, train station. Can't hold me back. I've got great things to do. I can almost see a way out, so it must have been closer to town. Still, that forest had felt awful and ominous, and though it looked like I was finally out of its worst parts, I could sense its gaze still upon me. Perhaps the woods didn't want me seeing what it held, but what, I wondered, could that be? We will never know! As I stepped through the gate, I suddenly recognized the auto parts factory where I worked. The plant was closed. I thought I could hear a faint rustling, but I was sure that it was just the wind, and kept going regardless. Okay, we'll be back once I've turned all the power on. And we're back. With the power working, the door was unlocked and I went right on through. I stepped out of the factory unsure of what to do. It was a long walk home and for some reason I felt a hint of regret at leaving that place, but I knew I had to get home to Rachel. I thought I'd try and make it back to the main road. I needed to get help. The path outside was horribly dark, but I had no other choice. So I guess my flashlight's working a little better now. A rusty old truck had careened off the road and into the guardrail. Its front was crushed and its windows had all smashed. Judging by the rust, it had been there a while. I didn't recognize the vehicle. I hope whoever had been in it had survived. I'm like, man, that was a really bad car accident. Hope you guys are gonna be okay. I'd entered Norman's place. That was the back of the store he ran. It was oddly quiet. Wow, nice television. Oh, hey, Norman. Kitchen trash bin smelt fresh. And I found a hairpin. Hey, I'll see you Friday for poker, right, Norman? Alright, bye! You really need to clean up all that ketchup. I used the hairpin to pick the lock. It snapped in half, so I threw it away. The rain outside was relentless, but it was a welcome change from the stuffy rooms of that store. Norman was obviously dead, but I hadn't bothered to figure out why. Was it because I was afraid or because I didn't want to know? Either way, I was finally close to home. Even if I didn't want to, I suppose I would get my answers. Hey, there's like a letter just barely sticking out of this thing. People should be more careful with their items. Make sure they get mailed off. Man, that person's check's gonna totally bounce. You're gonna be like, it's in the mail. Hello, Rachel? Hello? My laptop had been left on, and there was a key, which I pocketed. There's a key right here. The garbage bags were stuffed with old paint cans, and I took the small key and tried to remember what it unlocked. Alright, so I took the crowbar. Now I'm gonna head back down to the basement. Did I break through the wall? Yes. With a heave, I swung the crowbar. I smashed the hole large enough to step through. As I stepped through the broken wall, my breath caught in my throat. Was Rachel down here? A filthy-looking pile of rags. The stench of them was awful. I was terrified to even touch it. But after all the searching, when I looked in the rags, did I find Rachel? Yes. It was worse than I could have possibly imagined. Within the folds of that fabric was the pale, dead figure of my wife. What struck me most was she wasn't bloody or torn apart. Rather, she was covered in sickly green bruises, and her windpipe had been crushed. The real horror was what whoever had killed her had done so intimately, with their bare hands. So this is what had been gnawing in the back of my mind this whole time. This is what I was afraid of. I thought about all I had seen and wondered if any of it could help me figure out who had done this. And when I couldn't stay there any longer, I stepped away on shaky legs and made my way back upstairs. Reluctantly, exhausted from my journey, I could no longer resist the urge to close my eyes. Okay, so front door it is. There was nothing for me here anymore, no reason to stay in this house. Did I leave never to return? Yes. Living in this town hadn't been easy. The plant had helped me in some way to stay grounded. It kept me in line, gave me something to do, and helped me get away from my past. When the factory closed, though, everything changed. I guess that's when I started sleepwalking. I had MRIs and piles of doctor reports, but nothing seemed to help, not even drinking. But I swear I tried to give it up. I know it. The sleepwalking never really went away, though. I know Rachel tried. I know she had tried to be there for me, even when everything was falling apart. This night had unearthed terrible truths, but I knew it was a final act of long-standing horror I'd been living. Waking up in that house was the final cruelty. I wish I had just remained unconscious. Even the man I found in that old place was a mystery. Why he was dead or who had done it to him was not something I could even begin to understand. Or why, for that matter, I was in that damn room to begin with. And what was hidden inside those sewers? The tunnel to the man's house obviously led there, but was there something I missed? The tangled mess of that horrible forest was an experience I never want to repeat. But going from that forest to the old plant was hardly a relief. The memories of that place, it was painful just to think of it. There was something going on there, I knew, but I was no closer to the truth. After the factory, I thought I might just find some solace if I could get to Norman's store. But all I found were more horrors and more questions. Now that I really considered it, that's when I should have seen it coming. There were so many things to consider at Norman's place, and I was so confused. What the hell was going on? When I marched through the rain towards home, I desperately clung to the hope that this would end. And I guess in a way it did, but how could I have known how hopeless it all was? I started to feel as disoriented as when I sleepwalked. To think of it now, our house used to feel so lively, so warm, but coming into the kitchen I only felt a cold, empty tension. Every terrible thought I had up to this point was suddenly a possibility, but nothing could have prepared me. My wife, dead, ruined, discarded. Rachel's death was a terrible mystery to me, one that would haunt me forever unless I did something about it. For what solace can a man take in the death of his wife? What comfort can be offered? Rachel had been taken from me, and I might never know why. As I swung open the door and stepped out into the air, I caught the scent of wet grass and fog. Rachel, my beautiful wife. Just the thought of her again, cold and inert, shook me from head to toe. What would I do now? Who could I turn to? It would only be a matter of time before the police got involved, before the neighbors knew. The front lawn was soft and giving beneath my feet, and I couldn't shake the urge that I shouldn't stand there, but rather that I should run. We have one more ending to find from what I'm gathering. What I've done so far is gone through the whole game, and I've touched everything, picked up everything, just like I normally would have. And I've turned on the power, and instead of going, up there to the keycard area, I've come down here to where the power grid is. The power box looked like it was running again. I guess those switches must have done the trick. I also noticed there's 2 doors here and not just one. I never went through this one. The door opened now that the power was back on. Another smudge of dirt, similar to the one I found in those sewers, was on the floor. It didn't look like the footprints were mine, but they were probably too faint to tell. Shh, that scared me. A large pile of building materials and debris blocked the way. The factory floor never did get the repairs it needed. We closed too soon for that to happen. A rusted old regulator of some kind sat dusty and unused against the wall. Within the dust there were deep scratches, like from some kind of tool or blade. Planks, tools, and broken up parts blocked any further passage. The factory was like a tomb now. It never got repaired, and we never came back. Alright. What? The door relocked itself. I couldn't get back through. Yep, so it definitely was a choice thing. A rack of flashlights hung on the wall. One of them was missing. Wait a minute, they were exactly the same as the flashlight I was carrying. I turned my own over and looked at the bottom. Judging by the label, it could have definitely come from this rack. So I don't get to have the receipt over there. Okay. The stale scent of the old factory gave way to the brisk odor of pine trees and dirt. I was back outside, though I wasn't sure if that was better or worse. The path beyond was dark, and my flashlight barely illuminated anything. I wondered if it had really been taken from that factory. If so, how did I get it? That poor guard. He was probably just doing his job. Maybe he knew what was going on in that boarded-up room. If he did, he wouldn't be telling that tale to anybody. I hoped the path led back into town. I needed to find some help. The factory door locked itself behind me. So I'm on a different path than I was before. Ooh. A pickup truck had smashed into the guardrail and stood silent. Was this truck the one those newspapers had mentioned? Was there really a body found here too? Oh, that's totally different. I looked closer at the tailgate and could see a series of dried streaks down its back. Inside the truck was dried blood and broken glass. I was surprised this hadn't been towed away yet. Yeah, now we're on route B2 instead of Bo. 62. Oh, still got trash though. Garbage bin was a disgusting mess of rotted food and slick black bags. Thin greenish corner, and you know what? It's my driver's license, which I tucked it back into my wallet. I entered Norman's place. It was the back of the store he ran. It was oddly quiet. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna put the gun back away on his rack. What the hell? One of Rachel's old autumn coats hung on the rack. This was Norman's bedroom, wasn't it? What was this doing here? A speck of something dark and wet stained one of the sleeves. That dialogue was a little different. Inside the cabinet was a small but impressive collection. One of the slots on the rack was empty. The gun would fit, so I placed it back in the cabinet. Carefully pushed the piece back into place, and I felt a great burden lifted. Norman, what were you doing with all of these? I wonder if we could just go straight to this. What's this? Looks like a pool chain. I gave the chain a single tug and a simple folding ladder to the attic popped down. Trying to do things in slightly different order to see if it affects it. There was a large cardboard box that hadn't been sealed. The old cardboard box was stuffed with Rachel's things. Clothes, photos, what were they doing here? And where's Norman? I had to find him. I couldn't remember if we'd given these to Norman for safekeeping or something, but why would we? So I haven't pieced it together yet because I hadn't proceeded forward. Oh no. His face and shirt were covered in blood. Norman, you bastard, what were you doing here with Rachel? Did she do this to you? Did you hurt her? Norman, maybe you deserved better. Maybe you did not. Did I close his eyes? Nope. I was too angry, too upset to even giving him decency. I left him right where he lay and I didn't touch him. Screw you, Norman. Bastard. Yes, I dug through it. Got the hairpin. Fuck you, Norman. Okay, let's go. I wondered if someone had robbed the place before killing Norman upstairs. Oh, that's different. I could only think of poor Norman upstairs. So I don't think that they've cheated. There's nothing in me right now that thinks anything about the cheating. It had been weeks since I'd last seen Norman, and finding him that way still left me cold. Thinking of him slumped against that chair only cemented my reassurance in getting rid of that gun. It looked like someone had taken that piece from his store, but why was it in that tunnels? As I stepped outside, I recalled the dusty old box in the attic of Norman's. I felt like I had only discovered more questions, no answers. The neighborhood's local post box. There was a letter sticking out, and I took it. Envelope was addressed to Norman. There was no return address, but the handwriting looked familiar. Norman, I'm sending this to you in a letter because I'm afraid to tell you this in person. What we did, well, it was wrong. My husband is a man to be, but he is my husband and your friend. I need some time to sort this out away from you both. I'm going away for a while. I'm going to tell him, Norman, so don't you think you can hold that against me. Maybe we'll work it out. I'm not sure I even want to, but he deserves at least that much. Goodbye. I didn't know what to think. My mind was racing. I had to get home. Oops, that's not home. I had to get home by cutting through old Mrs. McDonald's place. I entered our backyard. The rain gave me a terrible sense of foreboding. I was expectant but afraid. I held my breath as I approached our back door. The house was painfully quiet. The only sound was my own breathing. I flicked the light switch. The power was off. No way was I going to walk away from this now. Inside were a few days' worth of clothes, some personal effects, and a train ticket. As I stared at the ticket, I could feel myself flush with anger and resentment. The date and time matched the receipt I found. Oh! It wasn't, the receipt that we didn't find. It was that letter that Norman had written, something about drinking. A filthy-looking pile of rags had been dumped in the corner. The stench was awful and made my eyes water. I was terrified to even touch the pile, but I knew I had to. I had come this far. After all this searching, when I looked finally within the rags, did I find my Rachel? No. No, I did not. The rags were wet, matted, covered in dirt and grime, but inside was no sign of my beloved wife. Rachel wasn't there. I looked around in confusion, trying to figure out what to do next. If she wasn't there, where was she? What had I been searching for this entire time? I remembered the look on Rachel's face when I came home, didn't I? Then the awful realization hit me right in the gut. I'd been looking at this the wrong way, hadn't I? This is what you've been trying to tell me all along, isn't it? I couldn't find Rachel there, and I won't find her anywhere else because she was never there at all. I stumbled back upstairs, the pain in my leg just a dull ache now, and sat down in my bedroom. My mind was spinning, and the ache I felt before was near crippling. Finally, I could no longer fight the exhaustion, and as I tried to grab hold of something that would make sense of all this, I drifted off. There's no suitcase anymore. I guess these books were actually all mine then. My head was pounding. It was my wallet with its contents intact. Either I dropped that stuff or somebody else did. Maybe I was sleepwalking, or maybe somebody stole it from me. Norman's store, that forest, the water tower. Was I at all those places before? Yes. I didn't see how it could have happened any other way. I must have been the one to lose my wallet and its contents. But what did that mean? Oop. It was a photo of the other man and his wife that I found in that house. Were those really his wife remains in the tunnels? It seemed so. What did I think? Did the other man murder his wife and bury her? No. I couldn't be sure. He could have been another victim. After all, he was dead when I woke up. Who killed that man anyways? In the shards of the broken mirror I could see my face, gaunt now, hollow and sickly, and immensely troubled. What other illusions had I dreamed up? What other truths were waiting to be exposed? Had this mirror been broken in the struggle, or by some other way? In the dirty, faded glass, I looked like nothing more than a faint shadow. There was only one set of toiletries by the sink. I used to tell myself that Rachel was the one that wanted to keep the tub. When was the last time I showered? I smelled awful. This is interesting, like all the dialogue changed now. It was the key card I found at the bottom of that factory locker. I never did bother to use it. Someone had been going through those lockers and poking around the plant. Still, it didn't quite add up. Was I the one who'd been going back to the factory? It looked that way, didn't it? That locker room. I had given up drinking, but I'd made up my mind. So I'd given up drinking. The laptop had finally run out of power. How long had it been left running? It was the letter I had taken from the postbox. It had gotten a bit wet in the rain, but if Well, who wrote that letter then? Who was Norman seeing? Oh no, Norman. If I was wrong about Rachel, then what about him? Did I do that horrible thing to him? Yes. I must have, but why? Did we fight? Or was I tricked into thinking he was sneaking around with Rachel? What was happening to me? The more I thought of Norman, the worse I started to feel. Oh, I had that old TV for so long, I don't know if I could ever replace it. Look, I don't have my flat screen anymore. It was a piece of junk, but I couldn't really afford anything newer. Oh, so I no longer got the flat screen that Rachel got mad about. 8 names written alongside those odd marks of different color were printed in that notebook. Heather, Olivia, Ashley, Cheryl, Iris, Daphne, Holly, Rose! There's no Rachel on the list anymore. I recall the names I saw scratched out within the desk, deep within those tunnels. Was the man in the house up to something? How did he end up dead? When I came to, he was already on the floor. Okay, so I did a little bit of research because through my whole playthrough here, I couldn't find anything on this safe. And I went through the whole game twice already, trying to find the alternate endings and see if there was anything alternate on that first path that I went down. And there's nothing for here. So I went and looked online. I know, tisk, tisk, tisk. The code for this is in the physical manual for the game. There's no way I could have found it. So I'm going to go ahead and open it. It's 4R3 UHER 3. So like, are you here? Spelled out with letters and numbers. There was a poorly framed photo of what looked to be a small headstone in a graveyard. It was tucked away peacefully under a beautiful old maple tree. Underneath it was another sheet of paper. This looked like some kind of MRI printout. It showed the top view of a brain scan. I noticed the bottom of the scan had 2 whitish patches on it. I didn't recognize either image. Finally, at the bottom of the pile was a simple white envelope. The front of it read, "Do not open until I tell you." I guess this was as good a time as any to see what was inside. Did I open the envelope? Yes. I tore open the envelope and removed the yellow lined paper inside. On it was a letter written in a hand that looked familiar. The letter read, "I know this whole event was probably pretty difficult. You can't imagine how hard it's been for me too. Well, maybe you can. That isn't meant to be an excuse, but, well, I hope you can better understand why I've done what I've done. Moving to this town seemed like such a dream. A quiet place to get established, to live out our lives and to be together. But you know as well as I do that things quickly changed. Your drinking was one thing, but as you grew more distant and you retreated into that world of yours, well, it was clear you didn't need me as much. In fact, maybe you never needed me at all, but it took all this to make you realize. In the end, though, you may never forgive me for this. You may never forgive yourself, but this is probably for the best. You'll be healthier for this. I'm just sorry it had to happen this way. Rachel." Oh my god, so we went to the doctor and we've completely lost our mind and we've gone schizophrenic and Rachel's never been here and we're just getting confused about it. It seemed like I seen all there was. Maybe I thought I was ready to go back into the basement. Maybe there wouldn't be anything for me to find, but I had to take a last look. If I was guilty, I could take this to a warm, safe place and do something about it. Did I pick up the knife? Yes. I took the knife and kept it firmly in my hand. Oh, there's no gun now. The wall was cracked and pitted. I was told by an inspector the basement had been partially filled in before I bought the house. But by the look of that wall, I was going to need to fix the foundation. Everything smelt musty and old down here. Oh, so I never broke open the wall to find out that there was nobody there. That entire thing was just in my head. How many breakfasts had I eaten here completely alone? Come to think of it, I didn't think I had even had guests over. The pile of mail on the floor I now saw was addressed to me. Bills, credit card, letters from the bank, they were all addressed to me. By the looks of it, I hadn't collected mail in over a week. The old claw-footed tub hadn't been cleaned nearly enough. Still, it would probably do. You showed me the truth. I wasn't sure there was any reason to keep on going. So what do you think? Shouldn't I just end this misery? I guess this is another one of the endings, and the last one's probably if I just walk out the door. So let's go ahead and do this. Since I'd arrived in town, things been difficult. Working in the plant, though, had been good for me. Kept me in line, gave me something to do. When the factory closed, everything changed. I guess that's when I started sleepwalking. Drinking was probably just a way to deal with that. It was almost as if I was trying to beat my brain at its own game. Things stopped making sense for time after that, and my memories of what happened are still in flux. I suppose that's when Rachel came along. The night had been the worst of my entire life. Would it even be possible to bounce back from everything that had happened? Everything I'd seen? You know, in a good way, I almost wish I hadn't even woken up tonight. That would have spared me a lot of pain. What had happened to the other man in the old house? Had I killed him? Is that why I was locked in that room? Or did you? After making it out of those tunnels, I thought those sewers might feel safer. I was wrong. The security tape had showed someone being attacked by what looked like 2 people. But who was it that it was attacked? And what had I been doing in Norman's place or even in that forest? It didn't look good, that's for sure. Had I been responsible for what happened there? What do you think? Was I guilty? Or was I just mad? The forest, though, was no escape either. The notebook especially left me troubled. I remembered seeing a similar list on that desk back in the tunnels. Who were the girls mentioned? I suspected there were more to those woods than I knew, though I had no intention of going back. So it's probably obvious to us both now that I was the one going through those lockers and making a mess of the old factory. What the hell was I doing there? I suppose it could have just been another episode, but I didn't understand. Was it really me drinking in that boarded-up room? What had I become? What more is there that you're not telling me? I had to catch my breath to take it all in. At each point until the factory, things had only gotten worse, but then going to Norman's store. That's where the confusion and doubt started to set in. That's when my perspective on all this really started to change. Norman, you bastard. I'd killed you, and it was clear to me now why. You had taken Rachel from me, and you were going to take her away altogether. In the end, you deserved what you got. But as painful it all was, oh no, I couldn't bear to think of it all again. After all I had seen and done, finally coming home was supposed to be the end of this. I had no idea, though, that it was only the beginning. When I'd first stepped through the kitchen door, the silence had been unnerving. But to think that I went through all of that completely unaware of what I had discovered, had I killed Norman thinking that he and... well, there was something going on. Everything that I held dear and true was now spinning around me. I had nothing to ground me, nothing to give me purpose or even the faintest hope of reason. Without Rachel, without what I thought was Rachel, I was lost forever. I drew a warm bath in the old tub and undressed. I wondered how many times I'd done this before, and thought about doing what we're about to do now. No, don't look away. It's actually really easy, really peaceful. See, I just keep my arms in the water as I make the cuts. It stings, but I can't really feel anything after that. Really, I'm just getting tired now. I have to thank you. This hasn't been easy, but you were right. This was the only way. Oh, now I just feel awful. Did they have to go through all of that detail? Okay, so I guess that's the end of that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and spin that wheel. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. I greatly appreciate it. I really can't stress enough how much I enjoy all the comments and stuff that you guys give me. And it looks like Alice Mare's going to be our next journey together. Give me that thumbs up if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you want more content. And thank you. Bye. Oh, please say I don't have to like hide. Because I don't think I'm very good at those games. Panicking!